This message is for you, right when you need it the most. Perhaps you didn't expect it, perhaps you weren't looking for it, but here it is. And isn't that how the most important truths often come to us? They arrive not with the loud fanfare of certainty, but in the quiet moments of doubt, waiting to be noticed. Life, as you know, has a way of weaving patterns that we can't always see from where we stand. In times of difficulty, it's tempting to believe the story is already written, the ending set in stone. But if we could only rise above our circumstances, even for a moment, we might glimpse a larger picture, a story still unfolding, a canvas still in progress. It's in these moments of trial that we are being asked not to retreat, but to look deeper, to listen more closely, to trust that what feels unbearable today could become the very foundation of strength tomorrow. You see, every challenge has its double nature. It can crush you, or it can carve you into something you didn't know you could become. The difference lies not in the trial itself, but in how you choose to meet it. Will you see it as a curse, or as an invitation? Will you allow it to diminish you, or will you let it shape you into something more resilient, more compassionate, more alive? This is not to say that your pain isn't real. On the contrary, it is very real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. But pain is not the end of the story. It never is. Even in the darkest hours, there remains a spark, a whisper of something greater than the darkness. Call it hope if you like. Call it grace. It is that quiet, persistent reminder that life is not finished with you yet. And here's the astonishing thing about hope. It doesn't demand that you feel strong. It doesn't require you to have all the answers, or even to see the road ahead clearly. Hope asks only one thing, that you keep moving. Even a single step forward is enough. Even the act of holding on is enough. Even the act of holding on is enough. So let me tell you this. Where you are right now is not the end. You may feel as though you've reached a breaking point, as though the weight is too much to carry. But consider this. What if this moment, this exact moment, is where your story begins to turn? What if, years from now, you look back and see that this was the season when you discovered your truest self, your deepest strength? This message is for you because you need it, not because you are weak, but because you are human. And being human means facing uncertainty, wrestling with doubt, and still choosing to move forward. It means believing that there is a purpose in the struggle, even when you can't yet see it. Carry this with you. You are not alone. Whatever you're facing, whatever burdens you're carrying, you are not the first to walk this path, and you won't be the last. And though the road may seem long, every step you take brings you closer to the light. How long is to be the test? Outside, so many do not live. This is your story, and it is not over. So rise, take heart, and press on. The best chapters are still ahead, and they are worth the wait. Truth has a curious way of arriving precisely when we need it most, though seldom when we expect it. It doesn't knock politely at the door announcing its arrival. Instead, it appears suddenly, unbidden, in moments that often feel too chaotic or too ordinary to bear anything profound. Yet there it is, steady, unshaken by our distractions, waiting to be seen. Consider how many times in life you've stumbled upon an insight not when you were searching for it, but when you were standing still, or even when you were in despair. Perhaps it was a phrase spoken by a friend, seemingly casual but weighted with meaning, or a line in a book you had skimmed past before, but now seemed written just for you. These moments are not accidents. They are threads in the fabric of something larger, reminders that we are part of a story that extends beyond the bounds of our understanding. Truth doesn't align itself with our schedules. It waits for the opportune moment, not when we are prepared, but when we are vulnerable enough to receive it. In this way, truth often disrupts before it heals. It may appear as a challenge to our assumptions or a revelation that forces us to see the world differently. And in that moment we have a choice. to resist its arrival, or to lean into it, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. There is beauty in the timing of truth, even if we don't see it right away. Imagine standing in a room shrouded in darkness, fumbling for a light switch. When the light finally comes, it doesn't just illuminate the room, it changes how you navigate it. The objects that were once hazards become opportunities. A chair to rest on, a door to walk through. In the same way, truth reorients us. It casts clarity over confusion and reveals paths we hadn't known existed. But here's the paradox: truth can feel like an interruption, a breaking point. It rarely arrives with a sense of comfort, for its purpose is not to preserve but to transform, and transformation often requires disruption. It asks us to let go of what we thought we knew, to set aside the safety of our assumptions, and to step into a space of uncertainty. If you find yourself facing an unexpected truth today, don't dismiss it. Don't rush past it in search of the familiar. Let it settle, even if it feels unsettling. Let it speak, even if its words are difficult to hear. Because the timing of truth, as inconvenient as it may seem, is never arbitrary. It is an invitation to grow, to see, to become more fully who you are meant to be. When truth arrives, it comes not to condemn but to awaken. And awakening, though it may be uncomfortable at first, is always a gift. Trust that its timing, though unexpected, is exactly what you need. Yeah. Perspective is a quiet yet transformative power, especially in the midst of trials. It is not the ability to change what is happening, but to change how we see it, and in doing so we change how it shapes us. Trials often come with an overwhelming sense of finality. They make the present moment feel all-consuming, as though the pain or confusion we're experiencing will stretch unbroken into the future. At present, the world tends to simplify into the future, yet perspective reminds us that this moment, no matter how heavy it feels, is just one chapter in a much larger story. Consider a mountain climber standing at the base of an imposing peak. From that vantage point, the summit may seem unreachable, the climb impossible. Every jagged rock and steep incline looms large, and the scale of the challenge dwarfs all else. But imagine the same climber reaching the summit and looking back. From there, the same journey that once seemed insurmountable now tells a different story. A story of perseverance, resilience, and growth. The obstacles that once loomed large have been reduced to stepping stones. The trial hasn't changed, but the perspective has. In the same way, when we are in the midst of difficulty, it can feel as though we are trapped in the shadow of something too great to bear. Our struggles dominate our view, crowding out hope and perspective. But if we can step back, even for a moment, we may begin to see the outlines of something bigger. We may glimpse how this trial is not a dead end, but a turning point. Not a burden without purpose, but a refining process. Perspective is not about ignoring the reality of pain or pretending that hardship doesn't hurt. It is about recognizing that pain is not the whole picture. Even in the darkest moments, there are threads of light. Small mercies, lessons learned, and unexpected strength. Perspective allows us to search for those threads and hold on to them, even when the darkness feels overwhelming. This shift in perspective also changes how we see ourselves. Trials often whisper lies about who we are, weak, alone, or incapable. But when we look at our struggles from a different vantage point, we begin to see ourselves as more than just people enduring hardship. We see ourselves as people who are growing through it. We begin to understand that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the refusal to be defined by it. And here is the most remarkable thing about perspective. It is within our reach, even when circumstances are not. We may not be able to change what is happening, but we can choose how we frame it. We can decide whether this moment will be the end of our story or the beginning of a new chapter. Perspective doesn't remove the trial, but it gives us a way to carry it differently. It reminds us that what feels unbearable today may one day be the very thing that equips us to face tomorrow. So when trials come, and they will, let us not be crushed by their weight. Let us instead look beyond the immediate, trusting that there is more to the story than what we can see right now. Accidents are inevitable, much like the story of Jesus. But so is the fact that the story is as rich in meaning as the trial. For in the midst of trials, perspective is not just a comfort, it is a lifeline, anchoring us to the hope that better days are yet to come. Oh, man. Hope is a quiet, steadfast force, often misunderstood in its simplicity. It is not a fleeting wish or a fragile optimism that evaporates in the face of difficulty. Instead, hope is a guiding light, a steady flame that burns even in the darkest night, offering direction when all else seems uncertain. It doesn't promise immediate relief, but it does promise that the story is not over and that there is more to come. When life is filled with trials, it is easy to lose sight of hope. Pain, disappointment, and uncertainty cloud our vision, convincing us that the future holds nothing but more of the same. In these moments, hope may feel elusive, even naive. Yet it is precisely in these times that hope does its most important work, not by erasing the darkness, but by reminding us that the darkness is not all there is. This is why, he says, hope doesn't deny the reality of struggle, it coexists with it. It whispers that even though you cannot see the way forward, there is one. It tells you to take the next step, even if you're unsure of where it leads. In this way, hope isn't passive. It doesn't merely sit and wait for circumstances to improve. Instead, it calls you to action, urging you to persevere when giving up seems easier, to trust that your efforts, however small, are not in vain. There is a paradox to hope. It is both fragile and unyielding. It begins as a spark, something barely perceptible, and yet it has the power to outlast storms. It doesn't demand grand gestures. It thrives on small acts of belief. A simple decision to rise each morning, to take one step forward, to extend kindness even in your own struggle. These are acts of hope. And with every such act, hope grows stronger, its light reaching farther. Hope also has a remarkable way of transforming how we see ourselves and our circumstances. It allows us to envision a future beyond our current pain, not because we are certain of the outcome, but because we trust that the journey has meaning. This shift in perspective doesn't diminish the weight of our burdens, but it makes them bearable. Hope reminds us that while we may feel broken, we are not beyond repair. While we may feel lost, we are not without a destination. Hope connects us to something larger than ourselves, a purpose, a promise, a belief that life holds more than the sum of its difficulties. It anchors us to the idea that even when the world seems indifferent, there is a thread of goodness, a reason to press on. And perhaps most importantly, hope is not something we must create entirely on our own. It can be sparked by others. A kind word, a helping hand, a moment of understanding. Just as light spreads from one flame to another, hope can grow through connection, reminding us that we are never truly alone. Even in your darkest moments when hope feels like the faintest flicker, it is still there. It may not light up the whole path, but it offers enough light for the next step, and that step is all you need to take. Because hope, fragile as it may seem, is stronger than despair. It holds the promise that the story is still being written, and that the best chapters are yet to come. So hold on to hope, not as a distant dream, but as a present reality. A guiding light that leads you forward, one step at a time, toward a future where healing and joy are possible. It may not make the journey easier, but it will make the journey worthwhile. For as long as hope remains, even the longest night will one day give way to dawn. And so, as you stand in this moment, whether it feels heavy with uncertainty, shaped by trials, or illuminated by newfound truth. Remember this: you are not defined by where you are now. Life's struggles, as overwhelming as they may seem, are not the whole story. They are chapters, not the conclusion. Truth comes to you not by chance, but because it is meant to guide you towards something greater. Perspective reminds you that what feels unbearable now may one day be the foundation of your greatest strength. And hope, that quiet and steadfast light, assures you that no matter how dark the night may seem, the dawn will come. Carry this with you. You are more resilient than you know, more capable than you believe, and never as alone as you might feel. This moment, though difficult, is part of a greater tapestry, a story still unfolding, rich with meaning, growth, and purpose. Trust in the timing, hold on to hope, and take the next step. The journey ahead is worth it, and the best is yet to come. Trust in the timing, hold on to hope, and take the next step. The journey ahead is worth it, and the best is yet to come.